Okay, so what was the topic we were going to talk about today? And I don't remember.
AI augmented development.
AI. Okay, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great topic. So,
yeah,
um, for those of you who are listening or watching, whatever, uh,
yeah.
we developed Meteor, which is our AI powered project management tool, um, and much of that was developed. I would say like 95% of it was developed with AI augmentation, right? So
Yes.
we have many hours
Yeah.
making that
Of
happen of
experience.
experience. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what? So let's start with you, Duran. You've been focused a lot on the DevOps side of things, right?
Yes.
So what sort of things are different about the dev using AI on the DevOps side than like just doing it yourself? Like, where are the pitfalls? Where's the what are the ways that you're going to want to use AI to execute that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So let's kind of jump in, and I'll take a little bit of time and just kind of build some context around like what happened and like how things progress. Because I think ultimately, and I'll just kind of give you the answer right now, and then I'll give you the context, right? So ultimately what I found is the more I know about DevOps in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just like my own personal knowledge, the better off I became with AI, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like when we originally started Meteor, there was a time where a lot of it was manual, and there was some stuff that I had to build, like Docker containers locally and try to deploy it. And actually, before that, I actually created this Terraform, this little fancy Terraform infrastructural script with AI, and it did what AI does best, right? Which is be ultra verbose and make a ton of like, I wouldn't say useless suggestions, but it was just kind of like over the top, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of created the Terraform thing, and from there, I still had to sort of do some manual build Docker and deploy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I found is kind of as I was sort of in the pocket, so to speak, that's like a music term, being in the pocket. But once I was sort of in the trenches and I started to see like, okay, here's generally what we need, I was able to sort of direct AI in that fashion. So like case in point, right? Like towards the end where like everything became fully automated, it was a point there where like there was some stuff being done, like for example, like in the Docker file, right? There was a lot of replication being done there. And
Mm-hmm.
then even and we were using GitHub, by the way. So in GitHub, there's a way that you can do a GitHub workflow and write a GitHub workflow that's super verbose. You got shell scripts.
Yeah.
Then you have all of this convoluted, like how you deal with secrets. And it's just, so, a part of it was like start off at 100,000 foot with AI. Like, hey, AI, generate me this, Azure ACR deployment sort of workflow. And it did. But what it did is it didn't give me the easy route. And I know AI is smarter than this, right? But it's like maybe it was because of my own lack of intelligence in the area, but it would like generate like so much stuff. And it was, I'll probably show it on the screen in a second. But when we finally got to the end,
Mm-hmm.
and I like really understood like the benefits, for example, that's specific to GitHub, right? Which is actions. You have these actions that are basically like, algorithms of steps in the process that's pre-baked that people have already done. They've solved the problem already. And you don't need AI to like rewrite, history, right? You can just,
Yeah.
hey, AI, give me a number of actions that do boom, boom, boom. And one of those actions was if we have a deployment that's actually running, wait for the deployment to finish before you actually deploy again. Because we were like missing, like you would, like,
Yeah.
for example, you would like implement stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like I would just go in and boom, 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 and just after a little brief merge review and bam, did a little code review and I'm merging it, and it would skip stuff. And AI generated all this stuff, and so the actions piece I kind of learned at the end, but I had to learn that. And then once I knew that, then I went, hey, I know about actions now, so you can't BS me anymore with all this, And so it finally did it.
Right.
So that was kind of like the progression of it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you brought up is a good point when you're talking about AI augmented software development or any sort of like IT stuff. AI will always give you an answer, always, no matter what. Yeah. Because it's just tuned to do that. You ask it a question, you tell it you want something, it's going to give you something. And if it doesn't know what to give you, it makes it up, right? And or it'll overgeneralize. So it'll do one of those two things. And if you don't have enough knowledge in the area, because I ran across this exact same thing, right? You end up implementing stuff that you didn't realize was just like, to give a specific example that I struggled with was before we dug into developing Meteor, I think I'd probably done cumulatively maybe like 90 days worth of software development in my 10-year technology career. And so, I also took and I took an online test on how to code in Angular, or not a test, but a course, right? I did a course that took me a month to get through. So I had some background, right, on how software is developed, and I've been involved in software projects all that time, right? So enough background that I could ask questions, but some of the stuff, like for instance, when we got to unit tests and I wanted to start implementing unit tests, I'd never seen one. I'd never implemented one.
Oh, yeah.
None of that stuff. So what I did was say, hey, I write a unit test for this component. And I just pasted whatever it gave me and then moved on. And then we ended up with, what was it, like 80 failing tests because AI basically, one of the other things that I didn't consider when going into this is context limitations, right? So some of the components that I had written were way too big because, again, I was, and I still am, pretty new at the development piece of it. And so it was too big for the context of what the AI could actually like understand. So it only, I was using GitHub Copilot for this, and it only can understand about like somewhere between 250 and 300 lines of code.
Yeah.
I had a component that was like 1,000 lines of code at one point. And it just was.
I'm like, no, wrong. It's 1,000 lines.
Right. And then of course I had to go back through afterwards and fix some of that stuff. But yeah, so the AI, because it didn't have all the right context and because I didn't know the right question to ask, it generalized. So what it did was it said, okay, here's a generic like function thing, it's like function A or whatever it was, and then a comment that said put your code here. And so it was a lot of that kind of stuff that I didn't pay attention to. So it'll do a lot of that generalizing. If you don't know the very, very specific thing to tell it to do, because like all computers, AI will only do what you tell it to do.
Unfortunately.
So, and it is great, right? And I would say it 10x's your capability and your speed. Again, like it probably turned me into someone with a couple years of development experience under the belt, right? And I had maybe about 90 days. So, I think that's a really an important point that you brought up when you talk about, you actually utilizing AI when you're developing software. I've got hundreds of hours into it now.
Yeah, at this point.
And there's that. Anything else you wanted to point out?
Oh, we can go on and on and on.
I've got stuff, but I want to wait for my stuff till you were done.
Yeah, no, I think you, just to summarize again, knowing what questions to ask, providing context, right? And sort of it's a double-edged sword, because if you know the questions to ask, why would you use AI? Right. And so my answer to that is because you don't have to like get like arthritis and stare at Stack Overflow and all of these other websites, for hours and hours and hours, putting things in your mind that may or may not be useful in the future. So I think that there is still a lane there.
Mm-hmm.
And I could show code, but I don't. Let's
we
move
don't
on
need
to
to show code.
yeah.
So from my experience, everything you just said, 100% true. I was asking AI to basically do everything at the beginning, and then one of the great things is I learned as I went forward. AI would implement a thing. Sometimes it wouldn't do it exactly the way I wanted it to, because again, it needs context, right?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't have the context of my specific piece of software, like it's not gonna look at, here's all of my components, and here's like the underlying goal of this piece of software, and this is the mentality that we want to use. This is our driving, like what am I trying to say? Like our driving thought process about what the value of this software is. It doesn't have any of that context. It just looks at your code, right? So even when you tell it what to do, it's still not always going to be exactly what you want. So as I implement stuff, and then I have to go back and customize pieces of it, I start learning. And so as I got into like the 200-hour area, I started doing kind of what you were talking about, where I would, if it was simpler changes that at the beginning I would have still needed AI to tell me how to do that change, I'm just making the change, right? Because I know what the syntax is, I know where to put it, I know what I'm looking for, whereas before I didn't. What I ended up using AI for is complex logic. If I have a syntax error I can't nail down, I don't know where it is, I'll just highlight it and make it fix it for me. Stuff like that. Right. In terms of like how to implement stuff, the flow of maybe like component hierarchy, all of those kinds of things. I don't use AI for any of that stuff anymore. I do that all on my own. So I do a lot more hand coding now than I did at the beginning. But it's still, but it's, so even though my interaction is different, it's still 10xing the speed and quality of what I'm putting together, because the AI, because I'm using the AI in a more targeted way, and I can see the AI is really good at actually formatting code, so I can see how it had formatted it before, and then basically just copy that format so that it's consistent across across things. So I think that's my experience there. One of the pitfalls I think that most people have to watch out for is the what I call the solution loop, right? Which is, you'll ask it to solve a problem, and it'll tell you, okay, do this. It didn't work. You tell it didn't work, and it goes, oops, sorry, and then it tells you to do another thing, and so you do that. You tell it didn't work, and you repeat this process until all of a sudden you loop back around to the initial solution. And then I had actually gotten caught into 3 rounds of this when I wasn't paying attention to what the AI was, before I really knew that I had to really closely pay attention. So when you get back to the original solution, what you have to do is completely rethink 2 things: what you're trying to do, and what you're asking the AI. Very specifically, what you're asking the AI to solve. One of these loops can come about if you don't know the specific way to solve a problem, and you're asking it to tell you, how do I solve this complex problem? And then its solution doesn't work. It doesn't know how to then reach outside of its little box and think of more creative solutions. So you have to, I found myself many times sitting down and thinking, okay, what is the AI actually doing? And I have to read through the code, understand it, and be like, why isn't it doing this? And then I would it would go, AI, look at this. Wouldn't it be better if you did it this way? And it would go, oh, you're right, you should do it that way. And I'd want to punch my monitor. right? But you'll find
Yeah.
yourself in that situation a lot when you're using AI to augment stuff. It's not creative. It just
Mm,
it fakes creativity really good when it comes to stuff like art and
mm.
and writing and things like that. But when it comes to creatively solutioning a problem, AI is not good at that. You have to be the one to creatively solution.
So I want to speak just a little bit on that because I think it even with the large commercial AI products like GPT and Gemini, right?
Yeah.
You you mentioned its limitation, which
Mhm.
is although it has access to the internet, and yes, it does sort of through its own technology gathers the data from various sources based on how the consumers use it.
Right.
The data sets are really still limited.
Mhm.
And so, for example, so the part where you were sort of going into like it doesn't understand context, it doesn't understand context if you don't give it the data,
Right. Right. Yeah. That you don't
right?
give it. Yeah.
Right. So, like, for example, like I tested this out, and GPT has this cool feature where you can create these models and then you could sort of train them a little bit.
Mhm.
And so I created a GitHub repository and I put in the GitHub repository basically I structured a sort of design pattern called model view presenter.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like an old school, new school kind of thing. It's the in between like MVC, MVVM, but it's sort of I like that design pattern because it's to me, I think it's more visually appealing and from a like clean architecture perspective, you could sort of look at the file names and you can look at the folder structure and you can understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So I tested this out, right? So I created a model and I in the part of GPT-4 up, right, you can say, okay, here's this URL of this repository, parse this repository, and then write me out a specification on what you believe it represents.
Mhm.
And then it'll sort of create this specification. And I've gotten better at this over time. And and so I feel like an evil genius. So it'll write this specification and
Yeah.
it'll boom, 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 the whole list. And then so we're talking about meta,
Yeah.
right? Like the sort of meta behind the data set. And so I'm sort of guiding it on how to understand that data set. And what I ended up doing is I said, okay, after I got a nice tight specification, then I updated it, and then from there I went into a session. And then I gave it a basic assignment. Hey, GPT, and I gave it a cool name and all this. Create me a new React MVP repository with these entities. And it generated the exact same thing based on the repository, right? That's already organized in a way that I want it to be organized. And then it'll sort
Mhm.
of make basic updates to the package JSON and other things. So I'm saying all that to say, as long as you give it the proper data set, and this is still a thinking man's job. I think that's one of the misconceptions with AI is that we no longer have to use our minds.
Right.
You
Right.
still have to use your mind and you have to come up with ways. If you treat it like a child, right? Like if you treat it like um, someone that you're teaching, and if you're not a teacher, then maybe, it does require a special skill set to deal with AI and sort of use it.
Right.
But if you teach it, and then if you give it proper context, and if you create what's called these specifications, it's really good at that because it'll print it
Right.
out, and then you can hand it to a different model altogether, like Gemini. And Gemini can consume that, and then you can compare and contrast the differences. I've done that over a wide assortment of different things, and I've seen some really good success with that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And one of the reasons why we've been able to get really good results out of what we're doing with Meteor, which is, we're talking about AI assisted, in this instance, software development, coding, right? But
Mm,
really, this applies to AI anything, right? AI is an assistant more than anything else right now, because, like you said, it's still a thinking man's,
yeah,
it's still a thinking man's job.
yeah.
Um, So you still need to kind of drive and lead AI to the solution that you want.
Yes.
But one of the things that we've been able to do with Meteor is actually get the AI to automate the work for you. But it has taken all of these hundreds and thousands of hours that the two of us have put together to understand how to provide the right context, how to ask the right questions, how to give the right structure, right? Because structures, if you give AI loves structure. So if you give it structure, it's going to like immediately coalesce around that. And you'll almost have a hard time getting it to stop using that structure. You have to start a whole new chat. Like you have to get rid of the context. So as soon as you give it structure, context, and then like a goal to reach, man, it will give you exactly what you asked for. It'll be great. And we've been able to do that a lot in Meteor. That's why we're able to get it to automate processes that normally we would have to kind of guide. If you were just raw going to go into ChatGPT and try to get the same outcomes that we're getting, you wouldn't, right? Because we know how to feed it the right context and questions and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that in 5 years it's going to be way easier, because it will be, right? AI is getting way better at all this kind of stuff. But right now, that's the best. I think the best way to use AI. The pitfalls, like you were saying, you don't give it the right context, you don't give it the right structure, you don't lead it to the choice, right? You try to get it to make a choice for you. If you don't give it enough guidance, it's not going to make a great choice. And then the solution loop, that's a thing that you got to be careful about, right? And then you'll still I would say, when I was doing the software development I was doing 10 years ago, I lived on Stack Overflow, and I'd spend 10 to 15% of my time on Stack Overflow, right? and Google, and just random Google searches. Now I spend 0.5% of my time on Stack Overflow.
It's the detox, man. Like it will detox you from all of these. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love, all of these sort of sites where you can get in there and be, interacting with the community. But, stuff like, boilerplate code. And what I would consider boilerplate code is like beyond like, create React app, right? Like beyond that, but it's almost like structuring the folders and making sure that the components meet these sort of guidelines. And all of that stuff is boilerplate. Like, and if you think about it like painting a house, right? You sort of sand this stuff down, then you sort of, do your primer, and then you come in with the first coat, and then depending on like how fancy you want to get, you put several more coats on there. And that's how I look at AI. I don't look at the first draft that it gives me as the finished product. I look at that as, this is like 100,000 feet of what I actually want it to be. And over the course of that sort of, drilling to the actual end result, and I've gotten faster, right? But at first, like you said, I mean, it takes, and one of the only other thing that I would say, right, especially with programming, there's nothing wrong with learning core programming concepts like design patterns, right? Platform specific, even design patterns, like client side design patterns, server side design patterns, even design patterns in SRE and DevOps. I mean, these things, I can't stress that enough. So I don't think AI takes away from a plural site and these other, learning systems. Because I think for me, I've probably spent more time learning about GitHub Actions, for example, and like, and so I think that sort of is applicable to like all of the other ways that you can use it, whether you're using it for writing, whether you're using it for, I don't know, to generate some sort of, program plan or whatever. I think that you still need to understand the core concepts of those fields, because when you use AI, you can then spot check it and say, okay, yeah, I see this is 100,000 foot. What about this? Because you know about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can guide it. So
yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I'm fidgety. That's why I'm making noise over here. Sorry.
Yeah.
One of the things, like, you're 100% right. Like, when you
Yeah.
know where to lead the AI to come up with better solutions, it's
Yeah.
faster. You do get those solutions really quickly, and you're just off to the races, right? When I
Yeah.
didn't, and I was using AI at the beginning, um, it took a long time for me to get it to solve the problem properly, because I would get in those
Mm.
solution loops. I wouldn't know what the actual solution was, so I'd have to ask it
Mm-hmm.
things in a million different ways. So I would say for the first 3 weeks of using AI minimum, that was it. It was almost like the learning curve of, I have a foundational understanding of how code
Mm.
works and technology. Now I want to use AI to help turn me into a legit software developer.
Yeah.
And that was probably a 3 week learning curve. So this is really kind of the magic of AI. Because without AI, if you took me and said, we're going to make you a legit software developer, Rich,
Nope.
no. I mean, that would have taken
no.
the rest of the year, right? To
Yeah,
get me to
yeah.
a point where I'm contributing decent code on a regular clip, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can be used. But because AI is so quick and so good at coding specifically, it's very good at coding. Um, I very also, like, as it was solving problems, I would learn how to solve those problems. So when I came to those problems again, I knew, okay, this is how you solve this problem. And then how this evolved was, I didn't know how to solve it. It took me a long time to get AI to get me the solution. So the next time when I got to the problem, it was, okay, I do know how to solve this, but I forgot what that syntax was. So, but
Yeah.
then what I knew how to do was tell AI exactly how to solve it. So I said, AI, do this specific thing, and it would pop out the syntax I needed. I'd pop it in there, so the solution was way faster, right? So this is that exponential um, improvement that you get from AI, because I don't have to have a code library. I don't have to have some like notepad
Yeah.
document with like snippets of
A
functions
little
or any
cheat
of that.
sheet.
None of that.
Yeah.
Right? It was
Yeah.
all right there with AI, and I used primarily GitHub Copilot, which at first I
Yeah.
was really annoyed with, because my
Yeah.
primary experience was ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and so a lot of times I'd go back to ChatGPT and try to get it to solve a problem that Copilot wasn't trying to solve, only to really
Yeah.
discover I wasn't asking the right questions. But as I started asking the right questions, as I knew what solutions were, and as I got more complex with my understanding and what I was trying to get it to do, it just got faster and faster and faster for me to implement stuff. I mean, an entire Nest.js application that, Duran, I think I needed your help for like hour on that
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
it across the line, because there was one thing I couldn't get the AI to do, and I didn't understand. And then I was writing back the back end system, and I think it was probably I don't know, maybe like 10 hours of me making updates to that system before I was like, oh, now I get what it's doing. I like
Yeah.
it sunk
Yeah.
in, and I didn't need the AI anymore. I was hand coding pieces of it, right? Because I knew what I needed, right? I know I need this, I need that, I need that, I need this to do this here, I need this to, So I started understanding all of those things that I didn't before. It was just really quick. So using AI as an assistant is really important. Understanding that just because you don't get the results that you want right off the bat doesn't mean that AI sucks. It just means that, it's like a relationship. It's like at first you don't really know how to communicate great. But the more that you spend time with each other, the more you understand how the other person communicates, right? It's a lot like that.
Yeah.
Right? And then you'll be able to pick out AI stuff everywhere you see it.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. Which AI tool for the job, right? So Copilot, I think is nice. but there's nothing like, maybe I'm biased. I can admit, but there's nothing like just having an empty slate. And it could be because I know I'm started off as an engineer. So I can sort of navigate it and have a foundational understanding and provide context. So I tend to look at things like GPT and Gemini and don't for people that listen, don't shoot me. But I look at it and I use it for creative tasks. And some people might say, no, it's not really good at creative tasks. It's better at repetitive tasks. And that's true. But I think that if you know enough about the problem that you're trying to solve, it can really provide the sort of creative solutions that's necessary for you to sort of think outside the box. I think AI is really good at that. And it sort of provides a mechanism for you to sort of triage different ideas, especially when it comes to like architecture even. Because one of the main things that I use it for architecturally is to evaluate, metrics and evaluate the sort of performance of architecture A versus architecture B on cloud A versus cloud B, and to do those comparatives. Because if you know enough about all of that, then you can sort of drill it and make it sort of enforce it to give you like different ways to solve the same problem. Right. And we did that with Meteor. There was this comparative analysis time frame that we had where it was like, okay, here's the architecture on this platform. Here's the architecture on that platform. Let's look at the cost analysis. Let's look at how it's going to perform. Let's look at case studies. And AI is really good at taking all of that data, using its feelers, bringing that data in, and then printing it out for you in a very consumable fashion. And it makes a person like me, because I love doing that, to say, okay, all right, folks, and here we go. I don't have to go all the way down to an MVP now or proof of concept. Right. We can just pull in all of these case studies, and we can pull in all of this data, right, that's publicly available to see, okay, you probably don't want to use Kubernetes here. You probably just want to use a node runtime because if you just look at the cost analysis. Right. So, some cool stuff with AI, man. I like it.
Yeah, and I would say that all that work that you did, we were planning to spend 10 times what we're planning right now on the infrastructure. And we didn't do any like you said, we didn't do any POCs, we didn't do any MVPs. Any MVPs. We didn't do any of that. It was just your analysis via the AI, and and your experience obviously played a piece into it.
Yeah. I got some experience.
Yeah. So I think really I guess what I would say is if you're trying to figure out, let's say you're not getting the results you think you should get from AI, what I would say is keep working at it, right? Push through that frustration, because eventually you'll get to this sort of equilibrium, and it won't matter anymore which model you're interacting with. Later, by the way, you'll learn what AI needs to hear to give you the right answer, is essentially the case. The reason I like GitHub Copilot, and this just again is I think it's just a habit thing, right? Because I don't really have any programming habits, and I didn't when I jumped into this. But because it's integrated into the IDE, and I can just highlight a piece of code and be like, literally fix this, hit enter, and then it fixes it, and then I click a button and it replaces the code. For me, that's so convenient.
Yeah, it is.
Right. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to have a window open with ChatGPT, copy, paste. This is the context for this thing. Please fix this, right? So you're going to get different results depending on which one you go to. They're not going to be crazy different, but they will be different. So there actually will be value in doing that second thing, right? Where you copy, paste, give it context to some other model. because again, maybe you're stuck in a solution loop. Maybe you don't know how to get it out. Throw it into a different model. It's going to come up with a different solution. Maybe it will. Sometimes it doesn't, but maybe it will. So I've had to use that strategy. In that instance, you got to give context. But the other thing you can do with Copilot is you can hit like pound file or hashtag file, and then you can give it entire files of code as a reference to a prompt. So for instance, let's say I'm pulling in a bunch of like a class into this component, and the problem I'm having is with the interaction between the component and the class. I can hit hashtag file, class name, enter, pulls in the entire class, and then I can be like, hey, where am I not doing this correctly? And then I hit enter. And then it's going to get the context of the class plus the code that you're looking at in the component. And it'll be able to be like, hey, you need to do this here. Or in the class, you're not doing this. So there's those kinds of, again, I think a lot of it is learning the tool, right? So once I learned that I could do that kind of stuff with Copilot, it was kind of a game changer because things just were so much easier. But the limitation with Copilot is still, even if you pull in files like that, it's still only going to hit about 300 lines of code, right? So as soon as what'll happen is, let's say I bring in like 4 files, like 3 components in a class, and I'm just like, I need it to do a thing in this specific component, but it's pulling in all this stuff from all these other areas. And you end up pulling in like 700 lines of code. It's only going to look at the last 300 lines that you give it. So that's the problem. But there also is a context limitation on the UI versions of both Gemini and ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, so you're going to run into that kind of no matter what.
Yeah, so it depends on. So what I've defaulted to is either I'm making a repository somewhere else and I'm feeding it to it, and then I'll tell it to tell me what it saw. In that repository, fill in the blank. It could be, a book, or it could be whatever, right? And it's an external source. And I found that we should definitely continue this, because I want to show how cool it is, because it will actually parse the repository and I think for especially enterprise, where you sort of have these teams everywhere, right? You got a team in the US, you got a team in India, you got a team in, who names it, Philippines, China, right? Having a standard, and you can even give it a Confluence link. Well, maybe not Confluence because it's got to log in, but you could, it depending on how you want to set it up, you could provide it the proper context. Now, I haven't really deep dived in Copilot to see if that's possible. But styling, especially in programming, structuring the file system and all of that is a huge deal, because code sprawl, especially with diverse teams that speak different languages, can be a huge challenge. So
Copilot can reference websites. I used it a lot when I was pulling in external API, when I was trying to interact with external APIs. Of all of them, I think so far it has the smallest context window so far that I've seen. Obviously, Google just recently increased their context window to 1 million tokens, but that's only for the API. I don't know how much it is for the front end Gemini app. It's much less than that, definitely. But it's still more than
GPT did extended theirs too.
Yeah, but only for the API. Yeah. So, but even GPT is like 300,000 tokens. That's their context.
Yeah.
So the difference is, it feels to me just like, again, I use the word feel because it's kind of just like a feeling, that ChatGPT is really focused on the consumer side of AI. How do we make this most usable for consumers, and how do we craft the technology and the infrastructure to support that? Google seems to be more focused on how do we provide this service to businesses who are providing consumer services, right?
Agreed.
That's why the context window, that's why they went, I think, with a 1,000,000 token context window. Now, if you're sending in 1,000,000 tokens, you're spending a lot of money. But
Yeah.
that is essentially, I say a lot of money. Even our AI costs are pretty low. I'm pretty surprised at the cost. Everybody's gotten way more reasonable in the last 5 years on these costs.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it just depends on like what are you trying to do with the AI? Are you actually trying to build like our entire system, like the foundation of the core feature of our system is AI, right? So we're really concerned about context windows and utilizing those kinds of things, right? Maybe you're not, right? Maybe you're just like adding a chat assistant, like an AI assistant, where you can like highlight an area and be like, "Hey AI, improve the this or whatever, or give me a better idea," or things like that. You don't care about context window. What you care about is its ability to be more creative.
Yeah.
You might choose a different solution.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you got to think about those kinds of things. But yeah, I'm getting off topic a little bit, but yeah, back to the AI assistant thing. I'm not sure there's much more to cover, to be completely honest, right? Like those are the major pitfalls. Those are the things you have to consider. You got to stick with it.
Yeah.
You got to learn the language. AI has its own language. You'll learn the language and you'll learn whatever it is you're trying to get AI to assist you with, whether it's code or whether it's like writing documentation or creative writing or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm. So. No, I agree. I think that the only other thing that I would say it was more implied than anything is I don't think that AI has reached the point where it's going to start replacing people's jobs.
Oh, not yet. Not yet.
Well, so, and again, automated general intelligence, I think, is when we need to start really being afraid, right? But right now, I just don't think that it's there yet.
Here's my opinion on that.
Yeah.
I think the concept you're talking about is the ability to plop an AI down, give it a general instruction, and then have it do the thing from start to finish on its own with no other input. I think you're right.
Yes.
Where I think people are missing, and where and this has been one of the driving forces behind Meteor, by the way, is that we can do this. What we're doing is sort of a hybrid approach where we use old school algorithmic processes, enhancing those processes with AI results to automate something that previously needed a human to automate or to do, right? So for instance, you jump into Meteor, you hit the create epics button, and it creates a bunch of epics for you. Like normally you would want a human to actually create epics for you, right? You'd have to think through blah, 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 right? But in fact, we don't do this right now, right? But you could click a button, walk away and come back and get an entire project plan from start to finish.
Yeah.
With Meteor, epics, stories, we could get it to break it out into sprints. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that is eventually coming, but it's not there now. But that's what I'm talking about is we're not saying AI, do this, make a project plan, and walking away and being like super cool with the project plan that it's making.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're utilizing the strength of AI to create the things that we need, and then hybridizing that with like algorithmic processes to produce something that looks like complete AI automation. That's what people who are going to be doing what we're doing, because this stuff is coming, right?
Yeah.
That's what AI automation is going to look like, and I think it's going to take us to a point where people are going to lose their jobs. This is the doom and gloom piece, faster than what we think, because we're thinking the only time somebody's going to lose their job is if AI can just be plopped into their place, and I actually don't think that's the case. So I think we're maybe 3 years away from actual danger of white collar jobs from AI as people start implementing this stuff. And then in 5 years, that's the like that's like the what is it? The
What?
why can't I remember? It's like the AGI moment when AI is smart.
Yeah.
What's
I
that
kind of get
called?
what you're saying.
What's that called? I can't remember anyway. The point of no return. I'll call it
Yeah.
the point of no
Yeah.
return. Right. I think 5 years is the point of no return. AI can now be plopped into somebody's seat and they can code an entire piece of software. They can run. Next year, we're going to be running meetings with an AI bot in Zoom. We're going to be doing that. That's going to be happening. Right. So all I'm saying is like, if you are not looking at your career and saying, what are the things that AI is going to be able to do that I'm doing? What are the like, excuse my verbiage, but I'm going to use strong language so that you get the concept across. What are the monkey brain, like sitting on the production line, mindless tasks that I'm doing right now? Is 90% of my job creating PowerPoint presentations?
Yeah, that's where I was going with
right.
it. Like, I can see that.
Is it creating PowerPoint presentations and holding meetings and then trying to get people to understand the value of the meetings and presentations that I create? If that's the job that you're doing right now and that's the only skill you have, then it's time to think, where in a world where AI is going to be able to do all of this stuff that I'm doing, because that world's coming sooner than you think. How do I provide value within the expertise and career that I've built? So for instance, project managers, which is the world that I come from. If you can lean on the servant leader side, if you know how to motivate people, if you know how to build if you know how to build strong, high-performing teams with no authority over those teams, you will be fine. You'll be fine.
For sure.
If you have the ability to see into the future, like have a vision for a project and understand where you want that to go, what you want it to look like, and be able to direct that and be able to do that for 5 different projects, you're fine, right? So from the project manager side, because what's going to happen is you're going to have AI that's going to be able to run all those projects. Project managers will no longer be running projects. They will become program managers. They will need to have more vision. They will need to learn how to manage teams better. Your job, as much as it is a interpersonal job, which it is, will be even more so on top of all of that vision stuff. If that's not what you're doing right now, if you're just managing Scrum or Kanban or waterfall processes, and you're holding your meetings and you're writing your comments and sending your emails and making your PowerPoint presentations, that's going away. That's going away. And if you can't provide value after that goes away, you're going to go away. So, again, we got this is like we've transitioned from AI assistant to what's going to eventually be happening, which is AI replacement. We've got to, so start thinking about those kinds of things. Software developers have to think of this. In fact, this is probably going to happen to software developers before it happens to project managers. It's happening to artists already. I read an article that interviewed this graphic artist that had gotten laid off because the company trained an AI model on all of the marketing designs that the guy had been making over the last 2 years, laid him off, and now the AI makes all their marketing designs. So this is coming.
So let me say this, because I don't want people to get afraid. Because Rich, you have a great way of. Here's the thing. Let's take real life case studies.
Yeah.
Right. So remember there used to be this whole big QA thing, and then all of a sudden it became SRE.
Yes.
So I think, and this is kind of in the same vein of what you were saying, and I think it's further out. I don't think it's 5 years. I don't think the technology. I don't think there's enough power on the planet to be powering AI to do what we're talking about in the next 5 to 10 years.
That's actually the best argument I've heard about against
Yeah,
it so far.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So realistically, I think what AI will be doing for people is forcing us to be thinking outside the box. And it's going to be forcing businesses to be looking at their employees in a way that's, in a more like pressing the envelope, like, okay, what else, what other values can you provide? Like you said, if you're just making PowerPoint presentations, then yes. But I've seen it happen because people were saying the same thing coming up to year 2000. People, it's always some new technology that's gonna replace everybody's, and and so I will agree, right, that I think that it's time for us and even me to be reskilling, upskilling, like finding better ways to approach our jobs, and then allow AI to do its thing. Don't be one of those. And I was one of those. You were. And I'm laughing because I didn't want to even use AI at first.
Mm-hmm.
And you really convinced me. You set me down and you convinced me.
Yeah.
And once I finally started using it, I realized I was working too hard. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think I don't know if we would be considered early adopters because it was around a little bit before, but for those of us, for those of us listening to this who may not already be using AI, I would challenge you to go to Gemini, ChatGPT, and even look at the low, I think I'm gonna do a top 10 list, by the way, post it up on LinkedIn or something. Like all of the AI driven products. Like I think we need to start immersing ourselves, all puns intended, with with using different AI, because if you're not using it, if you refuse to use it, right? Just like, remember, I don't know if it was World War II or World War I, where it was like all these factory jobs people got laid off because machinery came in and replaced their job.
Right.
And so I'm sure there was a large contingent cachet of people that was like, I would never learn how to use this robotic arm to like make my job easier, and I'll never do.
Right.
And it's like, if you're one of those people who feel like you don't have to do it, you're probably going to be that same person who does get laid off. And it's fine, right? And it's not because AI does a better job than you. It's just because you stop pressing the limit, right? We should never stop learning, right? This is one thing I want to leave this podcast with, like, always I don't care I don't care how old you are. You have been put on this planet to learn and grow. Don't stop learning.
Right. I agree. Yeah. I agree with everything you just said. All the predictions that I'm making about when I think AI, this is my opinion, and I know that many people that I talk to don't have this opinion, and even I'm still trying to convince you about it. AI is different than all the other technological advances that we've had in the past. Machinery, that was a big one, but we weathered that storm fairly well, right? Because it drove down prices and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
What machinery didn't do was completely upend like 4 million jobs, right? But what AI is about to do is do that. I mean, we have an entire technical industry where when we can automate everything a human does, right? Let me put it this way, and this is going to go back a little bit to my last LinkedIn post.
Yeah,
I'm a business, and I find out that I can replace every single one of my software developers with AI for a fraction of the cost and get 85% of the same production and quality out of it. Everybody's gone. Everybody, except the one person I need to orchestrate it. I'm just thinking business side right now, and I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but I'm trying to bring the reality, right? That this is how businesses operate, where they're going to try and maximize their profits. People are the most expensive resource. So all I'm saying is the jobs that we're doing today are not going to be the same jobs we're doing in 5 years. They're just not. So,
For sure.
so back to kind of what you were saying.
For sure.
Skill, like learn new skills. You got to be the orchestrator. If you know how to orchestrate AI better than everybody else around you, guess who doesn't lose their job? You do. You don't, right? You keep your job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you become a part of like that new job, that new career path, right? AI orchestrator or whatever the title ends up being, right?
Yeah.
And then we move forward. So it's not like society's not going to move forward, but I think what we're looking at is a pretty big shift, an eventually pretty big shift. It's not. Look, I right now sitting here can think of ways to get AI to completely write an entire like the software we just wrote. I right now can write down. I've been thinking about it. I can write down exactly how to make AI do that for us. So that's now.
Mhm.
With the fact that we still got to kind of hybridize, with the fact that AI is still not perfect, I can figure out how to do that. Other people are going to figure out how to do that, and what's going to end up happening is, like, so just think about in your career, like, and this is why we started Immerse, and this is why I've been pushing to make Meteor, and then we finally started making it, is think about your career. Think about all those things that are the push button, monkey brain stuff.
Yeah.
Make AI do it for you now, because AI can do it for you now. You're going to 10x your productivity. So it's only going to benefit you anyway. You're going to be able to produce more than everybody else. If you're not doing it, somebody else is doing it and overproducing on you right now.
Yeah.
So use AI for all the monkey brain button push stuff you do. You can get AI to create PowerPoint presentations for you. You can get AI to write documentation. You can get AI to do a lot, right? I just did this. I created an entire standard using only AI, right?
Yeah.
That has all these government regulatory requirements built into it, right? I did that in 3 weeks, right? If I wrote that on my own without AI, it would have taken me a lot longer, especially because I didn't know any of the regulational standards, right?
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is use AI now for all the monkey brain push button stuff. By the time we get to the point where AI is doing that, where the company has AI doing that for you, you're already doing other things that provide value, right? Because that stuff's off your plate. So dive into it now, 10x your productivity, and then start thinking about where else am I providing value, so that when things shift, and they're going to, we're shifting things. I'm telling you right now, just from what we're doing in Meteor, at the end of next year, small businesses won't need to hire project managers. Medium businesses won't need to hire project managers, right? That's going to happen just from what we're doing if we continue on through our roadmap. So just think about, okay, let's get rid of these things that are just push button things. Get AI to do that for me. Move on. Oh, okay, I need to create a new process control map for the support of this new software. Okay, go to AI, make your process control map. If you don't know about this, I'm about to change your world. Tell it to do it in Mermaid code. Pull up the Mermaid live editor and paste it in there.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have the process control map. So you'll do that in 15 minutes instead of somebody that's going to take 5 hours to conceptualize and draw up and all the process control map. right? You'll do it in 15 minutes. So do it now. This is all I'm saying. Like all those things that you think are super valuable, I can make process control maps. You know what? AI is going to make it. I can make AI do it faster than you right now. So do it instead of me. You do that. And then you become like the guy that's 10x. Nobody knows why. It's AI.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the year, everybody's going to be doing it. And then, right. And then, but you'll be 6 to 12 months ahead of everybody else, already building your new skills, learning crafts, things that are going to become more valuable as AI starts to replace these repetitive things that we're all doing right now in white collar America.
Yeah.
And anybody that argues, in fact, part of the reason why I wanted to do Meteor is because I had somebody argue with me that AI couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's
so
insane.
Like, you know what?
that's
I'm making AI do it. So I don't know what you want, right? Like you want, I'll prove it to you. So I'm just saying, like, if I put the effort behind it and we made a big switch right now, I could get AI to, by the end of the year, I could get AI making software. I promise you I can do it. So I'm just saying, like this is the thing that yeah, I know. It's okay. You can me all you want.
Yeah,
I can do it. I can do it.
Okay, I'll just, because again, I like the passion, right? I always come in with like, okay, Rich. Okay, like I agree. Repetitive tasks, if you're not using AI, I agree. I think if that's all of your job, if you're just doing, because again, we've seen it in grocery stores, right? I don't even go to and it's so funny because I don't even go, and there are humans there.
I know, yeah. And the last thing I want to do is talk to a human anymore. It's like, okay, the best thing I ever saw, this quote from Reddit, which is hilarious. In the 1960s, all sci-fi had video calling, right?
Yeah.
Now that we have computers in our pockets that we can video call anybody on the spot, like, nope, sorry, we'll do a text message.
That's right. Yeah,
no,
man.
I don't want to talk to a human. No, order a pizza.
Yeah, no.
That's on my phone.
Yeah, if I could just do it. Yeah.
Right.
So, and okay, great. I think that yes, there is a power concern, and the only reason why I say that is because someone else brought it up to me, and I had to look at it myself and go, "Ooh."
That's why I'm saying that was the best argument anybody's ever given me, because the capability argument I don't agree with.
Yeah.
Because the capability argument, no, I guarantee you 100% if I put all my effort into it, we would have software. We would have Meteor creating software by the end of the year. But that's not our roadmap.
Well, it's already doing it.
Right. Exactly. That's my point. That's my point. Anyway, but the power consumption piece, it's very similar to like EVs, right? So like there's this big push for EVs. Everybody knows our grid can't handle charging only EVs across the grid, and then now we're talking about AI being able to get So I think you're right. There's a big power concern behind that. So that's probably the best argument I've heard about that.
Yeah. And with that being said, that still doesn't mean that, repetitive tasks won't be replaced. That just means that I don't see what was that Will Smith movie called? iRobot. Yeah, I don't see an iRobot moment happening anytime. I mean, unless there's a breakthrough in like
quantum computing,
energy, and energy, and maybe
if quantum computing gets to a consumer level, that changes the game.
And what I'm saying, like energy, like because again, that still requires. Okay, so
look, I know a quantum computer requires more energy than a regular computer. There's a lot of cooling involved. I get it.
Yeah,
but the speed at which it can process versus, I think, outpaces the power consumption. Like if you did that with I'm just speaking on my assumptions right now. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, somebody. But I think if you stacked up enough actual PCs to create the same the processing power one quantum computer can produce. The energy equivalent of the PCs would be higher than one quantum computer. That's what I think. I could be wrong. Somebody prove me wrong if I'm wrong. And then
I would
never
like to
say
see
it again.
I mean, I would like to. I mean, this is why I don't think that moment. I think it's like that zero moment where it's like you're getting to a place where it's like things are progressing at like exponential. Like I just don't think it's there yet. But what I do think it is it's almost like back in the like 30s and 40s where the like robot arms came in and like there was a huge layoff, and then the people who actually got the jobs were the ones who actually got certified in those things and sort of accepted it. And I think that's kind of where it was like another industrial revolution for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. We'll see, right? We'll just these are all predictions. I've been wrong about a million things. I'm glad I wasn't wrong about what we've been able to produce with Meteor, right? But we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think when quantum networking and quantum computing get to the consumer level,
be a big deal.
That's going to be like the world will be so different after that. I mean, you'll have instant communication between every device. Every device will be wireless, and everything will be instant communication.
I have another argument. The speed of light.
Mm-hmm.
This is another constraint that we have to deal with. Right. I was looking at this article the other day, and it was sort of asking why people don't do jam sessions on like Zoom and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like post, I think it's like 2021. So people were sort of in the house, and and then we couldn't achieve it because of the speed of light. I mean, we're dealing with fiber optics.
Okay.
I think that's our highest.
That's the highest speed that we can get.
Right.
Yeah.
So
in terms of communication.
Yeah. So, and that's networking.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So even though it processes fast, you still have to get it from point A to point B in a I guess in a reasonable amount of time.
I mean, but what is this? I mean, you're right. There's a delay there. What the delay is from one side of the earth to the other, I think is probably very minimal. But even fiber optics need relays because the light has to travel through the optics, and that degrades the particle/wave of the light over time, right? Over distance. And so then they have to have the relay to push it forward. That creates more latency. Obviously, that is still the fastest communication method that we have right now. But there's still even another limitation, which is the speed of electricity in the circuitry of every single electronic device. So we can get the data to the electronic device as fast as humanly possible, and then that still has to be moved through the device through electrical processes. So there's still new frontiers to get there. But literally, if you went from 1 terabyte a second to infinite terabytes a second. Come on, right? Infinite data per second. That's crazy. It's crazy to me across the world. That's where we're at with quantum computing, with quantum networking.
You're gonna make me really deep dive because so the argument really is it something that we'll see in our lifetime, right?
Yeah,
because I think the prediction is the next 5 years.
Well, that's for the AI stuff, and I still stand by the AI stuff.
That's really aggressive in terms of the timeline. I think AI.
What has AI done since 2022? It's already changed everything. Everything. Every device has AI on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? People are using AI in ads to create art. People look at what Sora can make for video.
Mhm.
right? In 2 years. AI has, and we already accept AI 10Xs,
Yeah,
right?
that's agreed for
So all
sure.
I'm saying is that the normal progression that we've had, even though it has been exponential with technology,
Yeah,
AI has like immediately like verticalized that curve
yeah,
to a
yeah,
degree that I don't think everybody's looking at the past to predict what AI is going to do. I think AI is a different beast. I think it's going to increase things faster than people think. And we're already every time I show Meteor to somebody,
yeah,
they're shocked at what we did. And it's not rocket science, right?
yeah. No,
It's just that
yeah,
it's all it's going to take is visionaries to use the creativeness of the human brain to
for
figure
sure.
out how to hybridize AI to do what we want. And I'm telling you, that's coming sooner than we think. And
Yeah,
if your argument is we don't have enough, we can't support the power consumption of
yeah,
that,
yeah,
then that you're right, maybe the constraint that forces AI to the adoption and speed of development of AI to slow down. That that I can get behind. That I could get behind.
and I think quantum compute. I think that again, I was a nerd. Well, I've always been a nerd, right? So
Yeah,
like in second grade, I found out about nanotechnology, and I was
yeah,
so enamored. So I think that you go smaller, right?
yeah.
So I think that there's some opportunity there for scientists.
Have
I just
you?
wanted to say this.
Yeah.
What?
I was going to ask you if you've read the Michael Crichton book Prey.
No.
It's all about nanotech. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. You should read
Oh
it.
man.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's really good. It's a thriller, right? It's a fiction book, but I love how
Yeah.
Michael Crichton takes real, or he took, right? R.I.P. Michael Crichton. But he
Yeah.
took real scientific things and then used them to create, the thriller, or yeah, the thrillers,
Mm,
yeah, the
mm.
the sort of thriller that he created. One of my favorite
Yeah,
things
I'm gonna check
about
that out.
Jurassic Park is the gene coding stuff that he shows
Yeah.
throughout the book.
Yeah.
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 So
So the only thing that I wanted to, and maybe we start, you know, we settle for today, and then let the comments decide on who's, you
right.
know. So Meteor,
Yeah.
right? The time frame it actually took us to build out Meteor, I would say, and the amount of money that we that we did not have to spend,
Mm-hmm.
not in infrastructure, not in dev costs.
Right.
I think it is a striking argument. I think it's a good case study. What was it, like 2 months? Two and a half, 3 months?
Uh, we started in we started principal development, I'll call it,
Yeah,
in like early March.
yeah.
And then we did the open beta
It's like June.
Mid June. We started the open
Yeah,
beta. June 10th is when we started the open
yeah.
beta. So
Here to
two and a
three.
half, 3 months.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that wasn't full time, was it?
I mean,
Maybe,
that was
maybe at
one
first.
person full time
Oh,
for
at
the
first.
first
Well, at
like
first.
month and a half. Yeah.
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 So I think that's a striking argument. You got two people doing like five people's jobs,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
At one
So
point I was producing the this I was producing the same amount as a 3-person development team
that's
per
what I'm
week.
saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Just velocity wise.
Velocity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Velocity wise. Yeah.
So all right. Well, I would love it if someone would tell us what they think.
Yeah.
I don't think that the zero event is going to happen in 5 years. Possibly, we'll see. But I would love to, I want somebody to tell.
I'm not saying we're going to get AGI in 5 years. That's not what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
that's.
I think we're way farther away from
Yeah,
AGI than that. I just
yeah,
think that we're going to be able to get I think we're going to be able to get AI to do a lot more
Yeah, for
We're going to
sure.
be able to expand its capabilities a lot more than we think in the next 5 years, to the point where it will be very close to AGI. It will be like artificial AGI, if you know what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
it'll feel
yeah,
like AGI even though it isn't. I
yeah.
think we will get to that point in 5 years, and I think that's when we're going to see a lot of. I mean, look, if you looked at a robot arm creating all the robot arms that manufacture cars, and you watched that,
Mm-hmm.
you would think that there was an intelligence behind it, even though they're
Mm-hmm.
just following a code, right? It's all just
Mm-hmm.
algorithmic code. It'll be like that, where if you just watched it from the outside, it'd feel like there was an intelligence behind it. In fact, people talk about AI right now as if it already is this existential threat to like humanity. It's just not
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
It's
No.
not. And getting it to that point is way farther away than we think. And if the marketing around it kind of feeds into it,
Yeah.
into that idea, because that's what gets everybody excited about talking about AI, is this idea of the existential threat of what if AI takes over and turns into Skynet, right? And Elon Musk talks about that. Everybody
Uh,
wants to talk about that, right? But I think, like, if you just look at what AI is actually doing, the actual outputs of AI, forget about the conspiracy theories about how everybody's limiting it and they actually have AGI and the blah blah blah. If they had AGI, I guarantee you they'd be selling it, because they'd be making way more money than they're making right
yeah,
now.
of course. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't really buy into those conspiracy theories either. I really think what we're seeing is the best that they can give us, which is
yeah,
great. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying that to say it's not great. It's amazing. It's incredible technology.
yeah.
I think there's a lot of room for that even to grow. But we're way far away. We're way farther away than the marketing of AI would have you believe we are from AGI, and all of the news reporting around it. Like, stop clicking on the clickbait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But a human's creative ability to take what we're already doing and enhance it with AI, we're already at a place where that can happen.
for sure.
So expect far more automation. That's kind of what I'm saying. Is
Yeah, I can get on board with that. Yeah,
expect people to learn how to um, leverage existing AI technologies to automate things that you probably haven't thought
yeah.
that could be automated. Those kinds of
You'd be
automations,
surprised.
right?
You would be absolutely
Those
surprised.
kind of automations are coming, and the reason why I say 5 years is because it's possible now, and I'm saying 5 years
Yeah,
because it's going to take that time for money to change hands, for development to happen, um, marketing, all that kind of stuff. Part of the reason why we can move so fast is we're a small team, right?
yeah,
The bigger the team, the more complex the software, things tend to the machine kind of tends to get in the way. Even Google, who deploys, what was it, like 24,000 times a day,
yeah, yeah,
they still have the machine behind everything that they do.
yeah.
So Amazon's the same, 124,000 deploys a day. It's still Amazon. So all I'm saying is uh, that's why I think in 5 years we need to be prepared for AI being leveraged to automate the kind of white collar work that we don't want to believe can be automated. Just be
It's
prepared
already
for it.
happening.
We're doing
It's
it.
already happening.
We're doing
Yeah,
it. That's all I'm saying. We're doing it. You don't need 3 software developers and a project manager and a product owner in a room to plan the development of a piece of software anymore. Well, come August 5th, you won't. Let me put it that way.
You don't need it.
No. In fact, and we have beta testers that are doing this right now. I've been doing it for months now. This works. And it works in the real world, where you just go and
Yeah,
plan your project. And then the only interaction you end up with is one tech lead and a PO, maybe a SME and a PO,
yeah.
for 30 minutes to review what's in there. You're done.
And eventually you won't do that. You'll do it once and then it'll learn.
That's right.
Then,
That's right.
yeah.
And the more that you do, the more that you do, the more context. Again, AI is better with context. The more context you feed the AI, the faster it's going to do all that kind of stuff. The AI is going to plan all your sprints for you. The AI is going to run all your meetings for you. The AI is going to develop all the reports for you. That's coming. So we are going to automate all of that stuff before the end of the year. Reports, well, except the AI running the meetings. That's not the end of the year. But reports, planning, like sprint planning, documentation we already have in there. I'm just saying, I say this because like this is the level of what we've been able to produce. Other people are doing stuff like this. They just haven't pushed it out at the speed that we have.
Yeah.
So
that's because we're pressing the envelope. You know.
Yeah.
I'm a mad scientist.
Yeah. But before we sign off, Meteor is a project management AI powered automation tool. Right now, what it automates is project planning and document generation. And it gives you a location where then you can run the project via Scrum project methodology. That's coming August 5th, right? We're basically there. We're just putting the little bells and whistles on the edge of it right now. On August 5th, that's coming out. So, keep an eye on that, because if you want to save 90% of the time that you put into project planning and writing documentation, you might want to look at a piece of software that we have.
Yeah, buddy.
All right.
All righty.
Cool. Well, if you stuck around for the hour and a half that we just did this, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Have a good one.